Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today I wanted to make a quick point about something that I've noticed, observed, kind of come to the understanding of why there's such a disconnect between the younger and older generation about how we kind of view the world and what it is that we prescribe as the problems in the world and whether we view things as a cock-up or conspiracy. And the reason why I thought about this is because some of you might know, I'm a delivery driver and I will go to people's houses and I deliver them groceries. And sometimes the customer will ask me, are you in university or, what are you doing? You doing this or that? And I think they asked me this because they're expecting me to be a lot younger than I actually am because they just kind of think I'm like 18 or 19. And I say, no, I do social media. And that kind of gets the conversation going. What kind of social media do you do? And I tell them I do sort of political content and I make videos about conspiracies or other stuff like that. And I said to the guy, that today, because this was yesterday, I made a video about the ICE incident in America. And I said, I don't really understand why they have to kill them. And I think it's a little bit questionable. And I gave kind of my opinion, are they auditing these businesses and all that stuff? And we kind of got talking about it. And he recommended this this biography that somebody wrote about Donald Trump and to kind of get into the mind of him and kind of understand him a bit better. But this gentleman was slightly older. I would probably say he was about in his late 40s, maybe early 40s, something like that. And I said to him, I find it hard to believe that this is so organic and real. And he said, well, I'm someone who favors the cock-up over the conspiracy. I tend to believe that it's a cock-up rather than something that's planned, something that's kind of orchestrated and some kind of grand conspiracy. And I think that's like the main difference between the older and the younger generation, is that the younger generation is a lot more inclined to believe that there is a sinister conspiracy taking place, and the older generation aren't, and they believe that it's people just making bad decisions. And I think that when we're diagnosing the problems of society, we need to diagnose that it isn't actually a cock-up, it is actually a conspiracy, and the world is actually a lot worse, and the people who run the world are actually a lot more evil than we give them credit for. And I understand why the older generation think this way. And when people sort of talk about the older generation, they say, oh, they ruined it for us because they were so greedy. And I'm not denying that they ruined it for us, but I think it's more because they are completely and utterly oblivious to the realities of the world. Whether that's because of information, missing information, or because it's something that they're not curious about, and they have been propagandized into thinking certain ways, and they've been programmed to be workers and not thinkers by the General Education Board. And this was something that I think can kind of extend over to reform, because people are looking at reform now, and they're getting people like Robert Jenrick and Suella Braverman and Nadhim Zahawi, who are all, conservative deep state politicians receiving funding from all kinds of corporations who have genuinely got the white replacement at the forefront of their mind. And that's kind of what it is, isn't it? It's not really an accident that we imported millions and millions of foreigners into this country. It was an intentional replacement of the white people, and it's being done at the behest of greater powers. Some people might say Jewish power, some people might say deep state oligarchs, and this is not something that has been a cock-up. Now, I have heard people like Carl Benjamin say that we dropped the ball when it came to immigration because we thought that all of these immigrants were going to be beneficial for our economy and they were going to pay into people's pension funds, and that's not the case at all. And this is really where it comes down to, viewpoints on the world. This is what the viewpoints come down to. Cock-up or conspiracy. And yesterday, when I was outside chilling, I was having thoughts, like I always do. Thinking and thinking and thinking and thinking. And then I realized about my analogy. You might have heard me talk about it before in the last video. My printer analogy. What are we doing? We are adding ink to the paper. We're putting the ink in think. Or the ink in thinking. That is like, I want to make that my saying. Put the ink in thinking. Because if you do, and you use discernment and rationale and critical thought and analysis, then I think that you're going to come to the realization that it's not a cock-up and it's actually a conspiracy very quickly. Is it like a mistake that Nigel Farage is adding loads of Tories and loads of Muslims and loads of deep state politicians who pushed the COVID vaccine into his party? I don't think so. I don't think he's making a mistake here. I think this is an intentional rebranding of the Tory party. Was the COVID pandemic mismanagement? Or was it an intentional way of shutting down the economy, printing money, driving a gap between the upper and lower class and wiping out the middle class and injecting people with a bioweapon? But I think it's the latter. I think it was a conspiracy, not a cock-up. Go back to things like, the Titanic even, if you want to go there. Cock up or conspiracy? Was it an accident that the Titanic crashed into the iceberg, or did it have something to do with the establishment of the Federal Reserve? I think a lot of the younger generation are starting to come around to this point of view. And also, what I want to link this to is, when I was younger, I used to think, what is it going to be like when our generation are running everything? Because we're kind of cooked. We don't know how to pay attention and stuff, but we have the most information. We are the most switched on. We have free information, because older generations, they've got the paper and they read the news via the paper, and it was just that was what it was, and they didn't really go further than that, and they trusted each any given paper, and that's where they got their information. So they're much more inclined to believe that it's a cock up, that it's a mistake. But this is where we need to become conspiracy theorists. Kind of accept the fact that things are a lot worse than what you would like to believe that they are. And that's kind of what prevents people from getting to the conspiracy element, is because they don't want to accept that it's this bad. They don't want to believe that we never went to the moon. They don't want to believe that the Federal Reserve was established intentionally via crashing the Titanic. They don't want to believe that COVID was orchestrated and planned, and that the bioweapon that they took is actually bad for them, and that they wanted to cause depopulation and they want to cause people to be unhealthy. And so this is like the next thing that we need to do as a society. People think that we need to vote for reform or we need to vote for Advance UK. No. What we need to do is become conspiracy theorists and stop thinking that the leaders of the world are making mistakes. Because if they are making mistakes, they are some of the dumbest people ever to exist on planet Earth. But in truth, they're actually the opposite. They're actually some of the smartest people to ever exist. They're people who know what they're doing. They have a coordinated plan, and they are making an effort to depopulate us, to replace us with AI. And the media that they give us is all calculated and all very specific, and it all leads back to their agenda. So, just a quick video basically to say, first of all, put the ink in thinking, yeah? Start using rationale, critical thought, discernment, and stop printing the mainstream narrative out just as it came in, and start adding your ink to it. Add your ink to the think, but also become a little bit conspiracy minded, because this is what is necessary in order to diagnose the problems. And I believe that anyone who is against the conspiracy mentality is an enemy. Like, I was watching Nick Fuentes recently, and he's talking about how the weather manipulation is a crazy conspiracy theory and there's no proof to it, and yeah, they do cloud seeding, but chemtrails aren't real. And it's like, this is kind of the enemy here. And don't get me wrong, I've watched a lot of Nick Fuentes, and I think he's done some absolutely phenomenal shows, and I've praised him, but I'm definitely going to call him out when I see things like this. I see him saying that these conspiracies are way overboard, and it's not about anything else. It's it's just about Jewish power. It's nothing further. And no, I think that there is something else to it. Even previously on his show, he was kind of questioning whether the flat Earth is real, and now he's like, nah, flat Earth is crazy. Maybe we do live on a flat Earth, maybe we don't, and maybe that's pivotal towards, maybe that's kind of like central to everything. Because if we don't understand how we exist, and we don't understand sort of the realm that we live in, then how can we understand anything? I don't know, but it's not really a video about flat Earth. It's more a video to say just, we need to start looking at conspiracies. We need to be conspiracy theorists. That's what everyone needs to be. The political scene is kind of just a distraction away from being a conspiracy theorist, and reading books that go into conspiracies, I think, is what people need to start doing, and more content needs to be made around conspiracies, diagnosing the conspiracies and connecting each conspiracy to another. Like, for example, connecting the depopulation agenda to the AI replacement agenda. Larry Fink, CEO of BlackRock, says that shrinking populations will find the AI transition smoother. And I think that's effectively what it comes down to. We're being depopulated and replaced by AI. So that's it, basically. It's just a quick video to say that. Put the ink in think, and also, it's not a cock-up, but it is a conspiracy theory. And this is something that we need to drum into everybody's heads. This needs to be something that everyone starts to believe. It's not a cock-up, it's a conspiracy, it's intentional, and this is something that we cannot fix via politics. But yeah, anyway, that's it for this video. Appreciate you very much for tuning in. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll speak to you in the next one.